how drastic are these new wall angles in the outfield? Because they don't look that dramatic on the mock-ups, but we keep hearing about, well, it's a good thing we have better defensive outfielders because we're going to see some odd bounces off this outfield wall. Is it as drastic as they're making it sound? Does it look more drastic in person? Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there.
If you're watching this right now and you haven't hit the like button, Billy, get on it. Bug your brother. Tell him to do the same.
I know you touched on it here, but let's talk Rogers renovations here now that the team is coming back to Toronto today. I know that you were lucky enough to see the big unveiling with a bunch of the media here last week.
Yeah.
What were your big takeaways from just what the fan benefits will be from this renovation? But also, I know you touched on the outfield configuration. How is this going to change the way this team plays on the field?
Yeah, that's I think that's the big thing. It's funny because you go in right away, it doesn't seem that different. But then as we took the tour, as we saw, the how the walls are different now, and as you can sort of physically see, oh, okay, the outfield is not as long anymore and it's not symmetrical. Like, how is that going to play out? I can only imagine for a player, and say for a player like George Springer, who has played at Rogers Center for a little bit now and who got used to the configurations the way that they were. It must be weird to come in and have that be different. We heard Kiermaier speak during spring training about how every outfielder as a unit would go out the day prior to home opener or at the home opener and really study the dimensions all together and talk about it as a unit. That is so important, because if you're going to play cohesive defense, that needs to be communicated. And when you look at Kiermaier, Varsho, Springer, these are guys that are still learning to play with each other. Yes, they had spring training. Yes, they had this road trip, but they've never played together at Rogers Center. So that influences how you move, how you cover for each other, how you charge at a fly ball or at a sharp liner. There are so many things that they are now going to have to figure out, that they were going to have to figure out anyway because they haven't played together before. But the new configurations certainly add a wrinkle to that. When it comes to fan experience, my number one thing when we were taking the tour, and I actually got to sit at the bleacher section that they have now, and just the new outfield seats and all of that. Number one thing was these bullpens are really, really close to the fans. And that is going to be really fun, maybe. It's gonna be fun for fans. It's definitely the case.
Maybe not so much for opposing bullpen members.
I honestly don't know how it's going to go when the Yankees come into town. Obviously, I have the utmost confidence that the Blue Jays fans are respectful and nothing bad is going to happen. But man, it's hard to see them not at least like heckling a Yankees reliever as the pennant chase gets more intense. That adds a whole new layer to fan experience and just baseball experience altogether at Rogers Center. And then all the new spaces, I do believe that the Blue Jays did a good job of, as they set out to do, to bring in different types of fans, to grow the game in this city and to diversify the ballpark. That's pretty cool, to be honest with you. And as the product on the field has improved over the years, it makes sense for the Blue Jays to go out there and sort of improve the product within the ballpark as well as on the field.
I am also very excited to see how this bullpen right in the outfield fans is going to play out, especially after watching that brush up between Anthony Rendon and the A's fan. It's like you forget these ball players are humans and that they're really close, and some of them are hotheads, right? So who knows how this plays out in.
And listen, frustration mounts, right? I dare you to tell me that you've never been frustrated at work. it happens. Sometimes you want to yell at people. That's okay. It's okay to admit it. And that's no different for ball players, right?
Yeah.
I think you're right. We do forget sometimes that these are real people and that's their job. And it's gonna be stressful at times, and that's going to come out somehow.
Yeah, it's going to add a whole other wrinkle to just the opponents dealing with stuff. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I did want to touch on
sorry.
something. Oh, sorry, Adam,
Before
go
we
ahead.
move on, we have a question from Sharon. Just wants to know, how drastic are these new wall angles in the outfield? Because they don't look that dramatic on the mock-ups, but we keep hearing about, well, it's a good thing we have better defensive outfielders because we're going to see some odd bounces off this outfield wall. Is it as drastic as they're making it sound? Does it look more drastic in person?
It does not look more drastic in person, but I can understand that it will be a completely different experience for the players who are actually on the field. I think that we forget just how unpredictable a little baseball can be. And when you take away sort of what players are used to, and you add new angles and you add the possibility of different bounces, it's I can see how that would be a drastic experience for the players, even though it doesn't look it from the outside.
Like the old symmetrical walls, a line drive off the walls, basically bouncing straight back at you.
Correct.
Are we going to see any weird angles where a ball hits and now all of a sudden it's a triple because George Springer's chasing a ball with a mind of its own into the corner?
My bet is yes, we're going to see certainly more of that.
Okay.
And that is why sort of the communication between outfielders becomes more important and positioning becomes more important. And frankly, having better outfielders out there also becomes more important.
So before we move on, I would love to hear your thoughts on this new outfield defense so far.
What are your thoughts on the new outfield?
I love it. I honestly love it. I've been so impressed with Daulton Varsho. I really was a fan of Varsho when he was on the Diamondbacks, and he was a guy that, like, at the trade deadline, I'm like, him, like, that would be a great addition. I never actually thought that they would give up the sort of prospect capital that it would take to get him. So it was like really surprising when they did wind up giving up Moreno. But he has honestly exceeded all of my expectations. And I think it's mostly because of how good he is on the base path and with the bat. I knew how good he was in the outfield, but my goodness, he's a well-rounded player. And Kevin Kiermaier is now that the he was a Ray. Like it was so hard to even imagine him in a Blue Jays uniform. But now that he's here, I love it.
Yeah.
Are you similar?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
certainly.
okay.
And I think that it was something that had to happen, especially with, I think that I am honestly getting tired of saying the words new rules, but it's, but it is what it is.
It's a major
right?
change in the game. Yeah.
It is. And it's one that stimulates more offense, that puts more runs on the board. And so when you look at that, you need better defense. You need to counter the trend somehow, right? And it's no joke. We had a 12-11 game yesterday. It's clear that offense is up. How do you make sure that you're still winning games with the potent lineup that you have? Well, you get better fielders. So that was something that needed to happen for the Blue Jays to have success. Pair that with the renovations and the fact that things are looking different, and there will probably be more balls in play at Rogers Center that are going to go different ways than what we've seen. It really becomes paramount to have the best possible defensive unit out there.